More power! More power! What's going on?
A Boeing 747 in Japan explodes on a mountainside. Disasters don't just happen. They are triggered by a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. Japan. Haneda Airport, Tokyo. August 12, 1985. 6 p.m. Japan Airlines Flight 123 prepares for takeoff. Destination, the city of Osaka, 400 kilometers away. At the controls is First Officer Yutaka Sasaki. Keeping a close eye on him is Masami Takahama, one of JAL's most experienced training captains. The 26-year-old American Ward Wallach is one of a handful of foreigners on board.
My brother Ward became obsessed with Japan while he was studying as an undergraduate.
Now a postgraduate student in Tokyo, Ward has embraced Japanese life, despite standing out. Also on board is Japanese actor and singer Kyu Sakamoto.
He loved his family. He was kind, and someone who always thought of his family.
6:12 p.m. Haneda Airport Tower gives JAL 123 the all-clear to take off. Weather conditions are fine. The crew expects a short, routine flight. The Boeing 747 begins climbing to its cruising altitude of 24,000 feet.
A passenger needs to use the bathroom.
Be careful, please. Make it quick.
6:24 p.m. Two explosions rock the plane.
Something exploded. Check the gears.
The aircraft's flight controls don't respond. The crew desperately tries to figure out what's happened. Cabin pressure drops. Captain Takahama declares an emergency.
Tokyo Japan 123, request it back to Haneda. Descend and maintain over.
And radios Tokyo Air Traffic Control.
Take a magnetic course of 90 degrees for radar vector to Oshima.
The crew is trying to wrestle the 747 into making a right turn to follow a course back to Haneda Airport.
Going to right. Turn over.
But the aircraft is unresponsive.
Yes, sir. I said don't bang that mat. Yes, sir. What's going on?
The aircraft is still above 20,000 feet. Passengers are struggling to breathe. The pilots attempt to lower the plane's altitude to increase the cabin's oxygen levels.
Nose down. Nose down. Yes, sir. Nose down. Use both hands. Both hands.
6:38 p.m.
Work.
How about putting the gear down?
To create drag and slow the 747, the crew drops its landing gear. But a controlled descent is proving impossible. Tokyo Air Traffic Control follows the plane on radar. Over the next 3 minutes, the aircraft does a complete 360-degree turn, losing altitude all the time. JAL 123 is now wildly off course, deep in the mountainous region northwest of Tokyo. At 6:53 p.m. The pilots wrestled the plane to 13,400 feet, but it's still 65 kilometers northwest of Tokyo Airport. All air traffic control can do is watch.
We are ready for your approach at any time and coordinating with Yokota. Yokota available for landing also.
Power stop! Flapping now!
Flap up! Flap up! Flap up!
Suddenly, the plane lurches forward into an unbridled dive.
Power! Power! Flap! Nose up! Nose up! It's the end.
Japan Air 123, do you read? Japan Airline 123, do you read?
The plane disappears from radar.
Do you read?
The wreckage of a jumbo jet can be seen scattered across the mountains. A specially configured 747 loaded with more than 500 people at the peak of one of Japan's most popular travel holidays, and no signs of survivors.
Just 18 minutes after the plane disappears, a U.S. Air Force C-130 locates the wreckage on a ridge of Mount Osutaka, 100 kilometers northwest of Tokyo. It radios the Japanese authorities with coordinates. The U.S. offers military assistance. The Japanese decide to go it alone and set in motion their own rescue mission. In charge are the Japanese self-defense forces. The mountainous terrain and lack of equipment for nighttime operations slows any large-scale Japanese rescue effort. They reach the site 14 hours after the crash. Yoshihisa Masuda is part of the first response team to arrive on the mountain.
It was a terrible scene. There were very few houses. It was deep in the mountains, and one area of that mountainous place had been opened up where the plane had flattened all the trees where it fell. It was incredible.
Miraculously, 4 survivors are found. But 520 people are dead, including Q Sakamoto and Ward Wallach.
I think when I first heard he was on the plane, there was an air of unreality. I mean, Ward was vibrant, he was young. It's not supposed to happen that way. It was unreal.
Shortly after the crash, survivors recall hearing the screams of passengers in the wreckage dying out during the night. Physicians at the scene note some of the injuries they found would not have been fatal if help had arrived sooner.
They should have gone straight away. Why? Why did they take their time?
The Japanese Aircraft Accident Investigation Committee is responsible for investigating the crash. As demanded by Japanese law, a criminal investigation is also run by the police. In the United States, the manufacturer of the 747, Boeing, is alerted to the disaster in Japan. John Purvis was a member of Boeing's Air Safety Investigation Team in 1985.
When we learned about this airplane and realized it was a 747, we were concerned, along with everybody, that this accident could really tarnish the reputation of the airplane, because at the time it was the largest commercial jet flying.
With the lives of millions of 747 passengers at risk, the United States National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, wants answers to why this American-built plane crashed. NTSB Representative Ron Schleid is assigned to investigate.
There was an extreme concern that if there is a mechanical problem, that it could be a generic flaw, and that could affect the entire fleet.
A Boeing investigation team of engineers and NTSB members head for Japan. But once there, permission from Japanese police to access the crash site is delayed. While they wait for access, Japanese air accident investigators share with them JAL-123's cockpit voice recordings.
We could hear the explosion on the voice recorder. In fact, there were two loud explosions, one right after the other. Worldwide in the 1980s, there had been several terrorist acts, hijackings and bombings of airplanes. So when this accident occurred, it gave us a strong suspicion that it was an act of terrorism.
A photograph taken during the last minutes of JAL-123's flight raises further suspicions. It clearly shows the tail fin is missing.
It was, very clear that something unusual had happened. And again, this added to our conjecture that this could have been a bomb.
5 days after their arrival, the American investigation team is granted permission by the Japanese police to access the crash site. The investigators begin searching amongst the wreckage for JAL-123's major structural components. A few meters down the ridge, they find remains of the aft pressure bulkhead, or APB. Sitting between the cabin and tail section, this structure is designed to stop pressurized cabin air escaping through the back of the aircraft. The investigators study the APB for the telltale signs of bomb damage. But most of the bulkhead wreckage displays damage consistent with a high-speed impact. Looking closer, they discover some unusual damage.
In one area, the two pieces had separated in a very straight line, as opposed to the rest of the bulkhead, which had been torn and ripped in overload. It just separated or failed differently, and I wanted to know why.
Using a special tape, the team makes imprints of the fracture surfaces to take back to a laboratory. There, they study the fractures and pore over the plane's history. In it, they discover that the plane had once been involved in an unusual accident. In 1978 at Osaka Airport, the plane's pilot landed with the nose too high. The tail struck the ground and scraped along the runway, damaging the aft pressure bulkhead. The 1978 repair design instructs Boeing engineers to attach the new lower half of the bulkhead to the existing top half. To join them together, they're secured with a splice plate held in place with 3 rows of rivets.
One of the scenarios we considered during our discussions was, what if the repair to the bulkheads was done improperly? One of the team members did a mathematical calculation, if that were true, and it determined that the bulkhead would fail at about 11,000 cycles.
Remarkably, the plane had performed 12,319 takeoff and landing cycles since the repair, very close to the predicted number. It's a breakthrough moment. A faulty bulkhead repair could be behind the world's deadliest single aircraft crash. The investigators now need hard evidence to back up their theory.
So we went right to the area of the pressure bulkhead that had what I considered a curious-looking fracture.
The investigators discover the splice plate from the wreckage is an incorrect size. It appears that to make it fit, the engineers deviated from the repair design.
The splice plate, in fact, had been cut into 2 pieces.
The narrower section was fixed with a single row of rivets. The wider section of the splice was fixed with a double row.
That rendered that section of the splice basically to 70% strength of what it would have been otherwise.
Because of the faulty repair, just 1 row of rivets takes most of the force during every takeoff and landing pressure cycle. During each cycle, the bulkhead stretches and shrinks like the skin of a balloon. Tiny cracks form and grow around where the rivets punch through the metal. Some 12,000 cycles after the repair, the splice plate shatters. High-pressure air from the cabin bursts through the hole, weakening the bulkhead, causing it to fail explosively. The evidence suggests the ad hoc repair is the likely cause of metal fatigue, leading to the explosion of JAL-123's bulkhead. Following the discovery of wreckage in Sagami Bay, the investigators know the JAL-123 lost its tail fin 12 minutes into the flight. Revisiting the flight recorder, they realize this is around the same time both explosions are heard, leading the team to an astonishing conclusion. There is only one logical explanation for JAL-123's dismembered tail fin. As high-pressure air bursts through the failed bulkhead into the tail section, it blows the tail fin clean off. But this possibility puzzles the investigators. Even with bulkhead failure and no tail fin, the pilot still should have some control over the aircraft. Through plotting the plane's flight path, the investigators recognize a familiar pattern, a type of aircraft motion called a phugoid. As JAL-123 begins to dive, it accelerates. The increased speed generates lift, and as the plane climbs, it slows, causing it to dip again. The investigators know this phugoid motion is indicative of an aircraft with inoperable hydraulic controls.
To get the 4 hydraulic systems up into the vertical fin and to the rudders, all 4 have to go up there. And that means they have to run through the pressure bulkhead to start with, and they have to run up into the vertical fin.
As the tail fin rips off, the blast severs critical hydraulic lines. The aircraft is paralyzed. This explains why the plane flies in a phugoid motion, why the crew have extreme difficulty controlling the plane's descent,
Left turn now!
and why it cannot turn back to Haneda Airport, and instead descends deep into the Kanto mountain range. The crew's only option is to ride the throttle, trying to maneuver the plane by powering each of the engines separately. At the mercy of their stricken aircraft, there is nothing the pilots can do. A crash is inevitable. The number of passengers that could have survived if U.S. forces were allowed to offer aid becomes a focal point for bereaved relatives. To this day, there is no clear understanding as to who declined U.S. help. No one in the Japanese Self-Defense Force admits to ordering the U.S. crew to stand down. In response to the crash and subsequent fallout, the Japanese Self-Defense Forces did purchase helicopters and equipment designed for nighttime operations in mountainous terrain. The disaster also had profound ramifications for Japan's air industry. JAL President Yasumoto Tagaki resigned shortly after the accident. A JAL maintenance manager commits suicide. Boeing addressed the vulnerability of the hydraulics by adding a valve to the line controlling the plane's elevators and the lower rudder. If this line is severed, some control should still be possible. JAL admitted no liability for the crash, but offered to pay compensation. But neither the compensation nor the improvements to safety offered much comfort to the bereaved relatives.
There was a sense among, I think, all the victims, but certainly in my family, that this was wrong. That what happened was avoidable. That it didn't need to happen.
A botched detail in repairs led to the deadliest single-plane crash in history. Continued air safety improvements may only be made after another tragic incident.
Okay.